Does it tweak you out when people put the emphasis on the wrong syllable? If it doesn't make your eye twitch, then you may want to check out Queen Cleopatra, a new documentary on Netflix. Queen Cleopatra was the world's most famous, powerful, and misunderstood woman, a daring queen whose reputed beauty and romances came to overshadow her real asset, her intellect. Cleopatra has become an icon, endlessly embellished and rewritten throughout history. This series reassesses her fascinating story, her political brilliance, as well as questions surrounding her heritage, which remains the subject of debate. Now, this is part of a documentary series that explores the lives of iconic African queens. Jada Pinkett Smith is the executive producer of this, and she also serves as narrator for this docudrama. Now, I call it a docudrama because while we hear about Cleopatra's life from scholarly experts, we also watch a dramatization play out to provide more context, or at least action and intrigue to what's being told to us. Now, this is on the longer side for documentaries, with the series containing 4 episodes that are each about 45 minutes. Now, the information, it's pretty interesting, picking up the story from when her father dies, placing her then on the throne with her younger brother, and then following all the way through her death. There's a lot of insight we get, and I thought it was pretty interesting to hear about how learned that she actually was, and how she used that to her advantage time and again, especially when dealing with a relatively young empire like Rome was. Now, the scholars, they do a great job of detailing how the succession of power worked in Egypt, as well as the family lines which informed and then influenced Cleopatra's motivations later in her life, especially as she made moves politically. And for as intriguing and informative as it was to learn about Cleopatra's complicated relationship with Rome, especially with Caesar and Mark Antony, the dramatizations tended to get in the way and make this feel more like a fictionalized perspective rather than something that was supported by fact. We get snide looks and sarcastic remarks from the characters, and while I'm sure that in real life these people could have been actually sarcastic, the way that it's presented makes them appear as caricatures. And I can appreciate what the show is attempting to convey, providing visual representations to reinforce the scholar's words. But unfortunately, a lot of it ends up undermining the facts in just favor of melodrama. The way the dramatization is filmed is fine, and I think it looks good, sometimes providing a dreamlike aesthetic with soft focus and low light. The sets, they typically look like they're on a soundstage, but it's not so fake looking that it's a distraction. And I did love it when we would see actual footage of a location, seeing the architecture and the ornate etchings. And when there are action sequences, they're pretty lackluster, with over-dramatized violence, but fortunately, they're not lengthy or frequent. Now, before I had started this series, I had read that there was some controversy brewing due to the fact that the show portrays Cleopatra as black. Now, I was unaware of the sensitivity of this topic, but I had an immediate issue with the claim that the show makes. And really, it's how this information is brought up and then supported. One of the scholars at the very beginning of the first episode begins by saying how she first heard about Cleopatra and was interested, and then upon telling her grandmother about it, was told not to believe whatever she was told about Cleopatra in school, that the queen was in fact black. And then from there, very, very little info was given to support this or refute it. I watched through 4 episodes thinking the topic would be fully addressed where proof would be issued, but that's not the case. Now, I don't want you to mistake what my issue actually is with this. My problem has nothing to do with the question of race, but instead that the series basically creates a thesis statement right at the beginning and then uses a scholar quoting a family member as proof. I mean, this is shoddy. It would be like me saying that Cleopatra was actually Spanish because my brother said so. I mean, and the issue, it's not the claim, but it's the defense of the information. Luckily, other scholars mention the lack of knowledge and available information surrounding Cleopatra's actual race, and they focus then on the fact that she was depicted differently depending on the people and the region that were depicting her. Now, to me, this makes the argument that she was indeed a people's queen, so much so that the people saw themselves in her, regardless of what they or she looked like. And it felt like the line from the scholar was actually used more as clickbait, especially because the topic was barely even addressed throughout the documentary. Now, I think overall, Queen Cleopatra provides some good in-depth insight into the Egyptian queen, highlighting her intelligence and cunning while also showing her influence over her nation and people. While the information is comprehensive, the presentation works against the scholarly authority by creating melodramatic sequences with cringy interactions that come across as fiction rather than fact. This isn't the best docuseries, but it does have some merit, and I'm still looking forward to seeing more in the African Queens series, with the hopes that they'll focus more on facts and less on dramatizations. There's sex, very brief nudity, not really any profanity, and some violence. Now, as a reminder, I don't give couch ratings to documentaries, but this isn't one to just rush right out and watch. It's still worth seeing at some point, but I don't think you need to clear your schedule for it. So, what are some leaders that you think would make great topics of documentaries? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.